Hi everybody, it's Micheline from Needles and Curves. Welcome back to my channel. It's been a while, so much stuff going on in my personal life with work and stuff, so it's really difficult for me to make videos on a regular schedule. But for those of you who are coming back to this channel, thank you so much for being patient with me. Thank you for joining me. And for those who are wanting to see what I do in between videos, I strongly encourage you to join me on my Instagram page, because that's where I post all of my daily progress and all of my work as I'm doing it in between making videos. But for today, I'm excited to show you my most recently finished project as of yesterday, actually last night. I finished this last night, and that is what I'm wearing, which is Kwik Sew 2325. This is, they have this labeled as a chemise, which not very familiar with that word, but I know it is a nightgown, and that's what I'm gonna call it, my nightgown. And so I love nightgowns. Oh my gosh, I absolutely love them, and I sleep with them all the time, but I kind of have a favorite which is really battered and tattered and looks really, should be ashamed of myself for actually still having this thing. But needless to say, I was going to share it with you all, but I'm going to keep that one private. It's really old. Anyway, so about this project, it is Kwik Sew 2325, and I made view B. So looking at the pattern, it says the suggested fabrics are silk, silk-like fabrics, crepe de chine, charmeuse, batiste. Eyelet contrast fabrics are sheer, lace, eyelet, voile, organza. Honestly, I think you can pretty much get away with anything. And I looking at view B, it looks like a jersey type fabric to me, but I don't know, so I'll get to that later. So let me share a little bit about this project. I have everything written down so that I wouldn't forget. I cut a size large, which for my, that's pretty much standard across the McCall Simplicity patterns, because my bust size falls directly, actually my bust size, my bust is a 44, I think. I'll put the specifics in the somewhere in this video. But in any event, I cut patterns based on my upper bust, which puts me in the size large, and then I do adjustments to bring it out to the size extra large, which is what my actual bust measurement is. Actually, I can see it here. Let me see. Actually, my bust is 44 inches, but my under bust falls into the 40 to 41 and a half. So that's why I cut the size large, so that it fits me properly here. Adjustments, I made my standard adjustment, but I actually bumped it up a little bit. I have been using a 1/2 inch or 5/8 of an inch adjustment for my full bust and my back, because that's the difference between the large and the extra large, and that I just needed to up it a little bit. And at first I went with 5/8 of an inch, and that 1/8 of an inch didn't really do anything. So I went up to 3/4 of an inch, and I absolutely love that. It is the perfect amount. Whenever I do a bust adjustment, I don't just do it in the front, I do it in the front and the back, because Nancy Zeman, God rest her soul, Nancy Zeman says whatever you do to the front, you should also do to the back. So I wanted to add a total of 1.5 inches, and so I divided that between the front and the back. For the full bust adjustment, I did a standard full bust adjustment for a princess seam, and for the back adjustment, I actually follow Alexandra Morgan's tutorial on how to do a broad back adjustment, and so I will provide a link to that. That is like my go-to until that process becomes, you know, like ingrained in my brain. That is, I will go back to her video over and over. For length, I also shortened I brought the waistline up 1 inch. I could have probably gone with 1.5 inches, but since there's no waistline seam, 1 inch was perfect for me. In another project that I did, which I need to do a review for, 1.5 inches was the better option, but for this particular project, 1 inch was perfect. The fabric that I used was a stretch charmeuse from this really cute fabric shop that we have here in Wichita. I live in Wichita, Kansas, and I've lived here for now going on, I think, 7 years, and I've never seen this store. And oh my, it is absolutely the cutest little thing. It's a individually owned small business, and I will provide the link to her shop. This beautiful stretch charmeuse came from there, as did the stretch lace. And I tried doing this project with I tried doing a nightgown with a different project. I'm looking for the lace. I'm gonna put it around here so I can show you all. Look, here it is. Okay. I tried using lace from Hobby Lobby before with a different project, and it melted, so I was really nervous that this lace would melt. And as I sewed, I pressed on the wool setting for this project, and everything worked out just fine. Nothing melted. Everything is exactly as it was. Of course, I did wash my fabric ahead of time. That's in case I didn't mention that. Challenges. Cutting the fabric was a bit difficult for me, because I usually cut my fabric on the kitchen island, and unfortunately that island it's not wide enough. It's the standard island, so to cut single layer all of these pieces, I did it on the floor. Oh my goodness, I'm getting old, because that was hard. That was painful. So that be aware of that if you make this pattern, is that you will probably have to use a wide surface in order to cut the pieces out. Looking back, I thought about it. I probably could have cut broadly and then just do like the fine detail cutting on the island. So next time I will do that instead, because that was really painful. And other challenges, I didn't quite understand from the illustration how to sew the lace, which that was, first you sew it on the wrong side at 1/8 of an inch, and then you flip it around, and then you sew it again on the right side to using a zigzag stitch. And I will try to provide I'll try to demonstrate that in this video some way, somehow. So that was a little bit tricky for me, but once I figured out that I first do the wrong sides together and then flip it and then sew it again, things started to move along quickly for me. The other challenge I had was trimming back the seam allowance, because it's sewn at 1/8 of an inch. You have a little tiny seam allowance to trim back, and you want to trim it back because you know, of course, the lace is what's finishing the seams, and you're gonna have little frayaway fabrics, and so you want to be able to trim that back. So that can be a little tedious, but outside of that, you're good to go. That's the most challenging thing. What have I got here? Overall, this was a pretty easy project. It only has 4 pattern pieces, and they are, I have them here on Linda. They are the center front, which you can see here. I traced off all of my pattern pieces because that's what I do. You can provide a link to how I trace that in this video, which is an earlier, my previous video. So center front, side front, the yoke, which is this piece right here, and the back. That's all there is to this. All of the seams, like I said, are finished with the lace. I will come up close. I'm trying to pin it on Linda here. All of the lace here and here, all are the armhole, everything is finished with lace. It's very, very cute. My absolute favorite thing about this pattern is the length, which I will insert a picture because the video, you know, it stops right at my thighs, and I can do a little bit of twirl. It's very comfortable. I slept in it last night right off the sewing machine, and it was very comfortable to sleep in. And so yeah, I think that's everything. If you have any questions about this video or any of the processes that I made, I will do my best to answer them. In the meantime, thank you for joining me for another video. Well guys, I'm here at the sewing machine and I'm going to show you exactly how I sewed this lace together. One of the things I didn't mention earlier was that I learned it with the sewing the yoke to the rest of the center front, and that is go ahead and match your upper thread, your main thread, to the lace, and then your bobbin thread to the fabric that you're going to use for the rest of your garment, because it showed up much better at the end when I did it that way. When the first seam that I sewed together was this part right here, and it's just a nightgown, so no one will really see, but I'm kind of finicky about that kind of stuff. So if you wanted to look where it's the seam, just get your words together. If you want the thread to look really neat on the underside, match your upper thread to your lace, and then your bobbin to the main fabric, just while you are sewing these two pieces together. And so the first one is 5/8 of an inch, and so what I did was set my my stitch to the center, put my needle position to the center, and then I moved the needle all the way over to the right side as far as it can go. And then I'm going to do my best to, so we are wrong side to wrong side, I'm going to do my best to sew as close to the edge as possible while still keeping the fabric underneath the sewing machine. That can be a little funny, but just take your time. So I actually did this process without pins, with the exception of getting it started. You also want to make sure, because it's a stretch lace, that you don't stretch the lace, just kind of hold it in place. So let's go. I remove the pin. I'm keeping the lace right under the edge, right against the edge of the foot. So and sewing about an inch at a time, so that I make sure that I'm on course. When I sewed this earlier throughout the week, there were times when I definitely veered off course, and if you're going just an inch at a time, then it's easy to go back and fix that mistake. So I don't know if you can see that, but there it is, about 1/8 of an inch. So what I'm going to do now is take this to the ironing board, and then I'm going to show you how you flip it and go to the next step. So come with me. So the iron is getting warm, and I have two different types of scissors here that I work with for like detail work. This one is they're both by Fisker. This one has a little bit of a curve to it. I think they're embroidery scissors. I'm not 100% sure. And this one is just like a detailed scissor. Honestly, I just really worked with it as best as I could, because like I said, it's a little finicky. And so you want to go through here and trim the seam back as well as you can, as best as you can. All right, so now you have, I can go a little bit further here. So there's practically nothing there. It's almost to the stitching line. So let me go through and finish the rest of this. And the directions say for you to trim the seam, the lace right back to the edge of the cut edge. So, but I'm just gonna give it a little bit extra because I don't want it to unravel while I'm working on it. So now that you have, first let's set the seam. Again, we are working wrong sides together first. And then we're gonna flip it and bring the lace. So when we're flipping it, this teeny tiny edge here comes up. So now here we're looking at the right side of the fabric, and then we're looking, and the lace is now on the very edge. And so what I'm gonna do is press it and press the lace flat onto the front of the fabric. This is why that the whole fact that the lace didn't melt was really really good. So test your lace first to make sure that it won't melt, because you will need to use the iron to get the lace to be where you want it to be. For this step, I actually also used the clapper to make sure that it was really flat. So now to review, now we have the wrong side of the lace and fabric, and now we have the right side of the lace and fabric. So that is just like this. So here's the right side and the right side of the lace. So now what I'm gonna do is go back to the sewing machine, and using a small zigzag stitch, I think I used on my brother machine, it's stitch number 3, which is, I'll go verify that, but I'll zigzag really close to the edge of the fabric, both the edge of the lace, so right along here. So I'll go back to the sewing machine. So I'm gonna select stitch number 3, stitch number 3, and that's a length of 1.0, but I bumped it up to 1.5. I don't know, I wanted it to be a little wider. It's not much more wide. So here we go. Here I have, on the sewing machine foot, you have the standard foot. You have 3 notches, or at least I have 3 notches, one for the very dead center, and then there's like 1/8 of an inch to the left, and then 1/8 of an inch to the right. And what I did to keep myself steady was to line up the center notch with the kind of like the valley of the lace. The other thing that I did was to test, use the hand wheel to make sure that I'm catching the lace and I'm not going too far over to the main fabric, because I wanted all of the stitches to remain on the lace and not on the main fabric, because again, I have a coordinating plum shade for the lace in terms of thread. The thread is a plum shade and the lace is pink. The fabric is pink. So hand crank to check to make sure the stitches will remain in place, and they are. So here we go. Actually, I lied. The center knot, again, the 3 notches on the presser foot, I'm lining up the curved part of the lace with the outside, the far left notch. And as I'm looking at this, paying attention to what I'm doing, the center notch is actually riding directly across, right on top of the line of stitching that I did, the first row of straight stitch that I used. So pay attention to your sewing machine presser foot and see if and how that can help you keep things straight. Okay, so it's all done, and it's a very strong seam. We now have 2 rows of stitching to keep it in place. And what I was saying about the having the bobbin thread match the fabric, your under fabric, your main fabric, is it blends so very well, as opposed to having the plum fabric, the plum thread kind of just show through. To me it seemed a bit odd. But keeping the zigzag stitch right on top of the plum fabric, on top of the lace, means that now it's all neat and tidy, and it's so pretty. So here you go. If you're gonna do this, I strongly recommend that you do a sample like I just did first to make sure you know how your presser foot can help you keep things straight and keep your stitches on where you want them to go. And if that's the case, everything else should work out just fine. And on here you can't see the thread on the lace at all. It blends in very well. And so I hope this helps. I hope you give this a try, and if you do and you share it on social media, tag me. I'd love to see your work. Until next time, thanks for joining me. Bye.